Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, obviously we are 1 week away from Election Day, and I think everything gets framed around that. As all of the stories that we're dealing with collide. Presidential election for control of Congress, coronavirus, the politics of the pandemic, the Supreme Court in the middle of all of that, voting and early voting and voting rights. It all comes together. 7 days out, those are our stories. Let's start with David Chalian with the politics. Thank you.
Good morning, Jeff. 1 week to go, and I think the key today, the key driving story is two-pronged. It's the map and the message. And I'll start with the map because their campaign schedules today really do tell the story of their sort of strategic needs here as they build their paths to 270. And you see, after 3 stops in Pennsylvania yesterday, that Donald Trump is continuing to work those Great Lakes states in Michigan and Wisconsin today. This is, you heard Joe Biden yesterday when he popped up to dip his toe in Pennsylvania and get on camera yesterday. He said, we really got to rebuild that blue wall, and Donald Trump is keenly aware of that. If indeed Biden is able to do that and flip back those states that went so narrowly to Donald Trump and delivered him the presidency, it really puts up a major roadblock to his ability to get reelected. So that's why you see him where he is yesterday, Pennsylvania, today, Michigan and Wisconsin, just so critical, and we'll see him again in these places, no doubt. It is also interesting, just the overlay. You noted the stories that sort of go together. I mean, look at the coronavirus case map as well. I mean, a place like Wisconsin, which is just, completely raging right now with the virus, is one of these critical states for him, and he'll find himself there today as he continues to deliver his, rounding the turn and COVID message. He's actually going to be in one of the, hot spots in the country. And then, of course, there's the interesting piece of his campaign schedule today when he ends his day, or his final event, I should say, is in the Omaha, Nebraska area. As you know, the electoral votes in Maine and Nebraska are awarded by congressional district, as well as according to the statewide winner. And so that single electoral vote that comes out of the 2nd congressional district in the Omaha area, Donald Trump won it 4 years ago. Some polling there has indicated it is leaning Biden's way, and Trump is there to try and win it back. I think it shows you, just how narrow his path is, that he has got to spend time a week out making a play for a single electoral vote. Now, obviously, it also helps him in Iowa because it's the same media market and right across the river in western Iowa. A lot of Republicans there try to drive up the vote in a critical Midwest state there in Iowa as well. But the fact that he's putting the plane down in Omaha and holding that rally there is indicative. And by the way, Jill Biden is fighting for the one in Maine today. She's in Bangor, the Democratic nominee's wife. So Jeff Zeleny is going to look at that. He'll be there tonight in Nebraska with Trump, and he'll put something together on just the quirkiness of those, the single electoral vote. We also then have Biden in Georgia. No Democrats won it since 1992, and to think a week out that the Democratic nominee would be spending an entire day in Georgia when, his wife and his running mate were also just there, clearly they are trying to see if they can actually flip it. All the polling there suggests it's really close. As you know, Georgia, Texas, Arizona have been a part of a decade-long Democratic project of looking at the demographic changes in the Sun Belt and how they could flip some of these red states blue as those demographic demographic changes continued to accelerate. And Georgia now is where you find Joe Biden today, 1 week out from Election Day. It's kind of his attempt to expand the map and also an insurance policy in case that rebuilding of the Blue Wall project he talked about yesterday doesn't pan out. He wants to make sure he has some other options going. But it's also his message today in Georgia that I think is really a driving piece of today as well. I think we expect to hear from him in the 1 o'clock hour for about 25 minutes. Obviously, in Warm Springs, he's going to evoke FDR and that whole notion of a country unifying for a singular purpose of trying to overcome a great challenge. And we heard some of these themes when he was using the Lincoln imagery in Gettysburg a few weeks back, and today he's doing it in Warm Springs. It also is not so far afield, obviously, from how Joe Biden started this race a year and a half ago with the message of a battle for the soul of the nation, and obviously that was pre-pandemic and pre-economic slide, but here you have him trying to deliver that unity message as his closing message a week out. We also will see First Lady Melania Trump for her first solo campaign event of the entire campaign 1 week out. That is a late entrance for somebody as high-profile a surrogate as the First Lady has been utilized in previous administrations, but 1 week out, she's in Pennsylvania today making her debut trip, and Kate Bennett is all over that. Just a couple other things to note. We have Sarah Murray in Pennsylvania today. She's been looking at all the early voting that's going on in a state that really has had no history of early voting before, and that status of a critical, perhaps tipping point state. Bill Weir is up in Wisconsin today. These are part of our battleground state reporters now that have deployed in advance of the election in the most critical states. We have Dana Bash's piece looking at the youth vote explosion today. You've seen it in the early vote, and we saw some of this in 2018, and the perennial question about youth voters, like, will they show up? Well, they're showing up in the early vote right now, and could they be a difference maker in some critical states? Dana takes a look at that. Alex Marquardt's going to take a look at the policy differences between Trump and Biden on foreign policy today, and Tom Foreman is going to take a look at some of the most well-known promises from the 2016 campaign trail that Donald Trump made day in and day out at his rallies, whether it's building the wall and having Mexico pay for it, or draining the swamp, ending NAFTA, whatever his sort of most high-profile promises were, getting rid of Obamacare and replacing it, and the status of those things, sort of a report card on those high-profile 2016 promises as he's seeking a renewal of his contract for 4 years with the American people. And I think that's where we start.
Okay.
Sorry, one other thing I forgot to mention was the Bloomberg money. That just again with the map story I was saying, $15 million now into Texas and Ohio in this final week. So Bloomberg, who had been so focused on Florida, is also trying to help Biden expand the map. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Just picking up on your report, I just want to reemphasize that this is all about the path to 270 and where Donald Trump is today and why, and where Joe Biden is today and why. And then, of course, there's surrogates in Joe Biden and Melania Trump. But to David's point about where they are and why they're there and the path to 270 and all the ways the puzzle can be put together to get one of them to 270. And I don't want to be rushing through that. That is really where we are. Now, a lot of this also combines with early voting and vote counting and Supreme Court rulings. And so for that, let's move to Washington.
Okay, so let's start just with the overall numbers. 61 million as of this morning, closing in on half the total of 2016. As we get each day, Republicans are continuing to narrow this massive lead that the Democrats had in early voting. But the question still remains, how close they'll be, like how that will turn out over the next week. The president, for his part, continuing to cast doubt on this whole process, urging voters by tweet to change their votes in states that allow it. And then there is the Supreme Court piece of it all that's getting a lot of attention this morning. This 5-3 decision last night on ballots cast in Wisconsin, only if they're received by Election Day. But what is getting a significant amount of attention this morning is the Kavanaugh footnotes. And this centers around allowing state courts to, making the point that state courts are not in control, and saying that the Supreme Court would not look favorably upon these courts coming to them and asking for an extension. So liberals very concerned about this morning. This obviously is without Amy Coney Barrett. We are waiting on this Pennsylvania case that will be just this, that has now been appealed to the Supreme Court. So significant legal issues in this. And I think that's the voting piece of it this morning.
Okay, so I want to say that I really think that that this, all of our attention last night was Amy Coney Barrett being sworn in and all the issues she's about to face. Rightly so. But the Kavanaugh ruling, I think, was actually a really big deal last night and deserves our attention. And basically, he backing the Trump view that it's necessary for the election to be decided on election night, and that suspicion should be cast upon valid ballots counted after November 3rd in states where election officials allow that to happen. This is a significant deal. I believe Trump has tweeted about that we need to know the winner on November 3rd, and Twitter has already flagged that Trump tweet. If Richard Davis can check that for us. So I think that's another development in this whole thing. So the whole path to 270, where they are on the trail, and early voting numbers and the Supreme Court ruling, it all comes together. Washington, what else do you have?
So, as you mentioned, obviously the Amy Coney Barrett being sworn in last night, 200 plus people socially distanced this time at the White House in a way that we haven't seen before, masks being required. On his, aside from the tweeting about the election, he's on a tweet storm this morning about COVID. After November 4th, you won't be hearing about it. We're rounding the turn. There is, Politico's reporting, and we're working on this White House plan to announce covering vaccines for those on Medicare and Medicaid, using yet again a arm of the government to help his reelection. And then the only other thing that I want to point out is these Jared Kushner comments about the Black community, essentially saying Trump's policies can help but can't want them to be successful more than they want to be successful, which is raising a lot of eyebrows this morning. And Kayleigh McEnany tried to clean it up this morning, but, they're out there.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Okay, before we move to coronavirus and what happened in Philadelphia overnight, which I think are two other main stories, does anybody want to talk about election, Trump, Supreme Court, anything there?
Hey there. I think it would be great to show America's very long history of not deciding election outcomes on the election day. There's so many examples from state offices, lower offices, president, think Florida recount, that I think it's important to remind people that it's completely and totally normal and has happened many, many, many times in history that we don't know the winner immediately in all sorts of races.
Okay.
And Jeff, I just want to add to what Rebecca just said in the wake of the Kavanaugh thing and then also Trump saying we need to know on November 3rd. I think we need to start talking more about and detailing how states report their counts and how long the vote counting will take. There's an excellent piece, and it's in a giant chart of every state in the New York Times about where they talk to secretaries of state that I think at every state, in every state, about how their counting process will go, when they expect results. A huge number of them don't expect to finish counting at least until sometime on November 4th. Obviously, that's not November 3rd, as the president has demanded. But I think that we need to start gearing people towards that with a little more emphasis. I do think the chart and going state by state, obviously in a TV segment, we can't go through all 50 states, but I think we could highlight some and then point people to a digital breakdown of how it's going to go. But, the president and Kavanaugh, basically saying that the votes have to be counted on Election Day, that's not how states work. As Rebecca said, there's been many times when elections have gone beyond. Just think about 2018 and the sort of slow building blue wave as time went on. More and more Democrats ended up winning congressional seats in California and other places that changed the margin for Democrats in the House. And we just went through that literally 2 years ago, where votes were counted over a couple of weeks. It's not unusual, but also the states themselves have a plan for how they're counting their votes. They all do it differently. So there's some overlap. And I think we need to start explaining how they're doing that and what their expectations are for when they will have results.
And Michael, just to add to that, we do have reporters for exactly this reason in these 6 states that are likely to decide this election, and that is what they are there to do, is explain this. They have all the reporting.
And they should all be doing that. We should go to them and they should update on what's going on there. But I'm saying to accumulate in one place, and maybe it would be a focus on the battlegrounds, and then say, if you want to see how every state works, go to, CNN.com for a full 50-state roundup of how this works. But to maybe focus on the battlegrounds and what their count expectations are, and when the secretaries of state expect to return results. And this relates to the fact that some count mail-in ballots ahead of Election Day, some don't start counting them till that night, et cetera, et cetera. But I really think it's important to start countering this idea that we're going to have all the votes counted on November 3rd, because there's zero expectation of that in any year, never mind in this year with so much mail-in voting and the pandemic, et cetera.
To follow up on Michael and Virginia's points, we've done such a good job of doing correspondent whip-arounds about coronavirus, but Bill Weir is in Wisconsin, Sarah Murray is in Pennsylvania, Drew Griffin is in Florida, Keong is in Arizona, Miguel is in Michigan, and Diane Gallagher is in North Carolina. So those 6 states right there, there's no reason that we couldn't do a very similar whip with those folks about exactly what Rebecca, Michael, and Virginia are talking about. Other thoughts?
Jeff, you mentioned Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan just now, the blue wall states. As the president is asking for the votes to be counted by November 3rd, the reason that those 3 states will be particularly slow is that their Republican legislatures have refused the Democratic governor's request to process ballots early. So all 3 of those states are really late. They don't even open, in the case of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, they don't even open the mail-in ballots, which have to be unfolded, signatures checked, until Election Day. And that's because the Republican legislatures have blocked the requests for that to happen. So if we don't have the results in those states on election night, the blame falls at the feet of Republicans. Of course, as we've all been saying, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong if we don't know till Thursday or Friday in those states, because it just takes time to count it. But the reason we won't know until Thursday or Friday is because the Republican legislatures have blocked it.
Well, that would seem to be good reporting. This should be in those correspondent reports. Other thoughts?
Hey, Jeff, it's Richard Davis. I do want to confirm that tweet by the president was marked by Twitter as misleading. As Betsy Klein notes this morning, it always takes multiple days for votes to be counted. Some are provisional ballots, some are military and overseas ballots, and, of course, absentee votes as well. So Twitter did mark that as misleading.
So I think that John Antonio and Rachel, I think that is significant that they've done that, especially on the heels of the Kavanaugh ruling last night. I think it all comes together. Other thoughts? Okay, anything else in Washington?
No.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to coronavirus, and then we'll do the rest of domestic. Matthew.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. 1 week to Election Day, the rapid acceleration we've been hearing so much about is here, and hospitals all over are rapidly getting stretched very thin. We're now averaging 70,000 new cases a day. We're on pace for 9 million cases probably this weekend. The number that's really showing up on the ground across America is hospitalization. Up 46% in a month, at 43,000 now. An El Paso hospital tells our team there we're at the highest point we've ever been. And of course, the concerns about what's ahead. Gottlieb saying we're at the cusp of exponential spread in parts of the country, the hardest phase over the next 2 to 3 months. And as we look at the numbers, the U.S. positivity rate is in fact higher than it was a month ago. And of course, reacting to kind of the surrender playbook evident at the top and other messaging from the White House, the WHO chief calls this out, saying giving up on control is dangerous. Looking at the CNN map, 37 states going in the wrong direction week to week in cases. That map turning up red in almost the entire western half of the U.S. Rural areas hit very hard, often with smaller hospitals bearing the brunt. Alabama, the most red state on the map, up 60% week to week, but also the entire Northeast from Pennsylvania to Maine, red up on the map. Pennsylvania and Rhode Island recording their single highest case number days yesterday. New Jersey's governor says it is screaming out that it is surging right now. Newark will close non-essential businesses early at 8 and other measures in place. And then Texas, we've talked a lot about. Hospitalizations in Texas, almost double that of a month ago. El Paso seeming to be at a breaking point. The University Medical Center there seeing almost a tenfold increase in COVID patients from a month ago, airlifting non-COVID patients to other hospitals and such. We're getting some updated numbers at this hour. Ed Lavandera is live in El Paso on that. He's also got this piece that rolled out this morning just on the human struggle to stay afloat in Texas. The owner of an iconic bar who had to lay off 20 people, a single mother and salon owner, and stories like that. In the Midwest, Minnesota releases data tying 3 outbreaks and several dozen cases to the aftermath of Trump and Pence campaign events in recent months. Illinois' governor says there seems to be a COVID storm on the rise and put 6 of the 11 state regions in this resurgence mitigation mode, meaning they have temporary authority to limit gatherings and close indoor bar and restaurant service. We've got Adrian in Chicago, and Utah hospitals remain overrun, threatening to implement this care rationing plan. The state seeing a record high 7-day positivity rate, 17%. To talk for a second about masks, after all this time and all that we now know, masks remain a battle somehow. Now, mask orders are getting more traction in more places, including some conservative areas. Mississippi's governor ordering masks in 7 more counties. In Idaho, where the state is rolling back a full reopening phase, the city of Coeur d'Alene approves a mandate. And then Deborah Birx, visiting North Dakota, told the Bismarck paper, based on what she's seen, this is the least use of masks we've seen in retail establishments of any place we've been. Remember, North Dakota has the highest per capita case rate. Also, you've got South Dakota, also called out by IHME for low mask use, the second highest per capita case rate. So clearly, I think we can see a cause and effect here. On the health front, new concerns about waning immunity over time. This Imperial College London study, hundreds of thousands of people finding significant declines in antibodies as they return for testing 12 and 18 and 24 weeks later. Eli Lilly says it will stop testing one of its experimental antibody treatments in hospitalized patients, but it doesn't work so well in hospitalized patients, does help mild and moderate cases. And testing czar Jawar says the feds will ship out almost 40 million of those new rapid Binax Now tests to states by the end of the week to help them with reopenings. But clearly, the testing numbers have never really surged as promised. We've got Sanjay and Elizabeth and Jacqueline available from the health team. The wrap piece today is Nick Watt for 4, 6, 8, and 10.
Okay. Thank you. So does anybody have any thoughts on coronavirus they want to address?
Hey, Jeff. Good morning. It's Ben. Just to tie a couple things together really quickly, Virginia mentioned the tweet by the president this morning about all the fake media wants to talk about is COVID, 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 and after the election, you won't hear so much about it anymore. We are rounding the turn. That is obviously, a very, very tired line from the president. If we are rounding a turn, it is through the guardrail and off the cliff. There is no metric to look at to say that things are getting better, and frankly, it's a disservice, to any American who is wondering what is going on. So I think we need to be calling that out. Along with that, there's an interesting new Axios Ipsos poll this morning that will be alerting shortly that finds only 26% of Americans say the federal government's handling of the virus is getting better. 46%, almost half, saying the federal government is getting worse. Interestingly, businesses, employers, local governments, and the CDC have net positive differences in how people think they are dealing with the virus. And then lastly, I just wanted to flag these comments from Fauci yesterday that I think flew a little bit under the radar. There's been a lot of interest in these, so-called challenge trials where you have to potentially expose people deliberately expose people to coronavirus to see if they become infected to measure the effectiveness of a vaccine. Obviously, the news out of the UK where they've had to do that there, Fauci saying yesterday, we don't need to do that here in the U.S. because the virus is running just so rampant. There's no need to even construct a trial like that because things are so bad here. So just a really salient sign of the times.
Great. Thank you, Ben. Other thoughts on COVID?
Jeff, we're going to see a lot of Donald Trump today because he's doing so many rallies. And just a reminder about the masks at the rally. Despite what you might see in the picture behind the president, where the campaign specifically gives out MAGA masks and asks the people right around the president in the head-on camera shot to wear masks, and we have reported this out many times, almost nobody else in the rally is wearing masks. Reporters say that over and over and over. So as far as the visuals go of Donald Trump and COVID today, use the shots of the crowd, not the shots of the president. And if you do have a shot of the president, you can remind the viewers that those are some of the only people in the crowd that are wearing masks, and that's an intentional effort by the campaign to put that image out there.
And just to note, Trump just tweeted, now he's putting a number to where we are with COVID, 99.9%.
Okay. Other thoughts? Okay. The rest of domestic, Matthew.
Okay, first, this major unrest in Philadelphia overnight. Dozens of police injured, confrontations over this fatal police shooting of a black man, Walter Wallace Jr. He was armed with a knife, but the mayor says there are difficult questions about this case. About 30 officers injured, mostly from flying projectiles, one hit by a pickup truck. Reports of looting going on even this morning. There was this confrontation captured on eyewitness video. Wallace at one point brandishing a knife, but there are questions about how the confrontation got to this level, about why he was shot at a distance while holding a knife, as officers backed away, about whether there were any real attempts at de-escalation here. Wallace's mother reportedly tried to intervene, seen on the video. Questions about non-lethal weapons and why they weren't used here. There's just a lot we don't know about the shooting itself, but obviously the unrest is a major story. The reaction rages on. The mayor has a 1 o'clock presser ostensibly on COVID, but he'll certainly get a lot of questions, so more to come there. The full eyewitness video now available, being sent out. There's body cam video, but it is not public yet, so we'll find out about when we see that. We've got Sarah Murray for the moment in Philly handling lives, and Bryn Gingras takes over this story in the 11 o'clock hour and packages for the afternoon. A couple of other items from the policing beat. One of two people shot in that fatal police shooting that led to those protests in Waukegan, Illinois last week. She has a news conference from her hospital bed at noon today. Tafara Williams was the girlfriend of Marcellus Stinnett. He was the one in the car going in reverse. Police shot into it, killing him, injuring her. The officer fired. Omar can handle this from Chicago. And still a lot of answers needed on why a police officer in South Georgia shot and killed a 19-year-old spotted hours after supposedly fleeing a traffic stop. Jakarian Jackson was shot dead in a parking lot in Sylvester, Georgia, and authorities haven't really explained why. So we're working on that still. There are the massive wildfires in Southern California, high winds, raging fires, 100,000 people forced to evacuate some pretty well-populated areas like Yorba Linda and Irvine neighborhoods. The windy conditions just creating infernos and massive plumes. Stephanie Elam was up live from there this morning, remains there. And, of course, keeping an eye on tropical storms, soon again to be Hurricane Zeta. Hurricane warnings up right now from Louisiana to Alabama for this storm that will make landfall on the Gulf Coast tomorrow afternoon, and we've got the Weather Center on it.
Does anybody have any thoughts on any of these stories they want to raise? Okay, I think as some know, I want to make sure we are covering what happened in Philadelphia. International.
Hey, good morning. So we're seeing anti-lockdown protests across the country in Italy, but especially in northern parts, where some have turned violent, police using tear gas, and reports of wounded. So Ben Wiedemann has that latest today. Belgium is considering a second lockdown. Hospitals could be running out of ICU beds in 2 weeks. In one city, there are reports medical personnel are being asked to continue working despite testing positive. So Melissa Bell has all that reporting from Belgium, which, just to highlight, it has the worst infection rate in Europe per capita. Russia imposing a mask mandate in public spaces from Wednesday, and officials are also limiting hours for bars and restaurants there. So Fred Pleitgen has that whip today. A Vatican official says they're trying to convince the Pope to wear a mask in public. He had faced some criticism recently for not wearing recently at events attended by large groups. So Delia Gallagher has that report for us today. Melbourne is hours away from ending one of their longest lockdowns after the Victoria State stamped out new cases for the second day in a row. There's a package from Selena Wang in the system on that. And then just last on COVID, India sees another significant drop in new COVID cases. They're way down from the 70,000 plus figures they were reporting just a few weeks ago. So Veritas has that for us today. Did you want me to do the other international lines?
Yeah, finish the international, please.
Okay, yeah, just three more stories to highlight. So just regarding the continuing row between Macron and Erdogan, in some parts of the Muslim world, we are seeing French products being pulled off shelves. Our Wits package today really looks at where the anger is coming from towards France from the Muslim community. Nigerian authorities are also on high alert. A judicial panel today begins their investigation into police brutality. They're looking at the shooting of protesters last week, but really this is all being seen as a test of the independence of the judiciary. So Eleni Giokos is on that story today. And then just last, a well-known Hong Kong activist detained while trying to seek asylum at the U.S. consulate. We have some reports of other activists also seeking asylum with Americans, which would obviously put the U.S. at odds with China. So that's a story we're getting more reporting on, and Selena Wang will be following that. And that's where we start today.
Thank you very much, Penny. Business.
Jeff, good morning. Stock futures attempting a recovery today after that disastrous day on Wall Street. Equities plunging to their worst session since September, all amid the surge in coronavirus cases, as well as no stimulus. The Dow fell as much as 950 points yesterday before settling down about 650 points. Yesterday was the worst day since September 3rd, closing below 28,000 for the first time since October 6th. So we are tracking that closely. Futures this morning were up, but now flat following Caterpillar earnings. That company, considered a corporate bellwether on the state of U.S. manufacturing, reporting a 54% drop in earnings in the third quarter as equipment sales declined across all regions and segments. Christine Romans is available on that this morning, and Allison Cossack is at the New York Stock Exchange. Allison also tracking this morning this open letter published by more than 600 business school professors declaring opposition to President Trump and urging corporate America to act with conscience with regard to the president. So she is tracking that. That alert just went out moments ago. In media and election news, Fox News and the Today Show ran this video yesterday on what appeared to show Joe Biden criticizing former President George W. Bush as the person he was running against not President Trump. President Trump tweeting yesterday saying, Joe Biden called me George yesterday, couldn't remember my name. Problem is, the video was based on deceptively edited clip that was peddled by the Trump camp. Donnie texted me moments ago that the clip still lives on Twitter and Facebook and has millions of views on YouTube. I know it was covered in the Reliable Newsletter Overlay, and Brian Stelter and Oliver Darcy are available on that. That's where we start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so before we move to digital, does anybody have anything they want to bring up? Digital.
Hey, 29 million uniques yesterday. The Collinson piece that tied together the pandemic and the election was number one, and we had also really strong with Feliza on the 60 Minutes interview and Faith Karimi on Black voter turnout. Those were really strong top threes. The top videos over the last 24-ish hours are why it's important to get a flu vaccine, the Barrett swearing in, and Trump walking off an interview in 1990 when he was asked tough questions about his casino. This morning, the 10 Senate seats most likely to flip. This is the latest from Simone Pathé. She has been on this for digital. Audiences love the down ballot. This is getting 20,000 concurrence and growing, and it is our runaway number one. Number two is a service story on how to prepare for the coronavirus surge. This is from our wellness team. More on that in a little bit. A new study showing evidence of waning immunity to COVID. Biden is making a play for red states in the final days of the campaign as Trump narrows his focus. That's Bradner on the map and message framing that you and Chalian talked about. And then Zeta making its way toward the Gulf Coast after slamming into Mexico. A few more things on politics. Brownstein on why Texas Republicans' hold on the state is loosening is super strong. Frederica Scouten, this went up yesterday midday, and we didn't get a chance to shout about it in the call. It's a really good story on women fueling a Biden fundraising surge. So we've got that on women. We've got Dana, as previously mentioned, on this potentially being the year of the young voter. And then coming in noon, we've got what we know about everyone who's voted so far. This is from Adam Levy. You know, it looks like they're going to be younger and more diverse. Plus, we have a separate on the Latino voters. And then, as previously mentioned, we have Faith Karimi's good piece on the Black voters. So all those demographic pieces that we have up and coming in the next hour or so are just really terrific, and we're going to keep on packaging those, and audiences are there for it. In addition, there's some really good newsy op-eds like Trump's big problem in Florida from Chris King. These are the three factors that could determine if Trump wins North Carolina again. That's from Douglas Hayes. And then why it's time to stop using the term election day in favor of the more accurate last day of voting. That's from Vivian Schiller. So good kind of voting, election, demographic pieces. The Scoopik is really good on Barrett. We've got her in the T1 for a little while longer, just zooming out. You know, she's 48. She could serve for 3 decades or more and shape law for an entire generation. She's going to have a ton of influence over a long period of time. And Stelter on last night's primetime celebration is really good. We have that out, and that was in the newsletter. Kushner's revealing and racist comment on Black Americans and success. We have the news pop of the video, but we've got a Brandon Tinsley analysis that is really smart, really good. We have the Kavanaugh, we have more coming on the Kavanaugh ruling for the discussion here, and we just went up with a federal judge rejecting the DOJ's attempt to defend Trump in the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit. So that's a little bit of breaking news that we're out with. On COVID, in just 1 week, the surge has added 500,000 cases to the U.S. total. So that's our framing for our main bar this morning. We have all of those new case records that are being set that Matthew mentioned. We have another piece on October is the new April. It's starting to feel like April all over again, with field hospitals opening up, curfews enforced, refrigerated trucks are on the move. And then, of course, with the global picture not being any better with, you know, what's happening in Italy, for example, with protests turning violent as anger over COVID measures mounts there. So it's kind of no wonder that a service piece about how to protect yourself and your loved ones is our overall number 2 this morning. I mean, it's remarkable and understandable at the same time. And then lastly, yes, we are on the Philadelphia shooting. and protest story, in addition to the other police beat stories that Matthew mentioned. Those are out. And then the California fires is another big interest for audiences. I mean, that's 100,000 people that are fleeing under evacuation orders. So we are going to stay on that, and we have our wildfire tracker to go with that as well. That's it.
Thank you very much. John.
All right, so a busy day on the campaign trail, and we're out with all the key players. Jessica Dean in Georgia, where Joe Biden making a play for the state. 2 stops. We're with him at 1 o'clock in Warm Springs. Jeremy Diamond with President Trump, who will be in Lansing, Michigan during the 2 o'clock hour. And then Obama, Biden's number 1 surrogate. He's in Orlando today during the noon hour, one of those drive-in rallies. Jason Carroll is there. We'll be dipping into portions of those appearances. All this in the shadow of that really consequential ruling involving the Wisconsin ballots. The Supreme Court ruling, just had Ariane DeVoe on, had some really interesting analysis digitally, and we had that discussion on television. Joan Kuskupik and Rick Tildy's coming up later on today. I'm going to focus in on the Kavanaugh footnote and the implications of that. And then we will be whipping through the reporters in these different swing states. They were mentioned, Drew Griffin in Florida, Miguel Marquez in Michigan, Ken Law in Arizona, Diane Gallagher in North Carolina, on the issues at play on the ground in those really make-or-break states. John King stays on his Path to 270 look with the Electoral College, and a big focus on the youth vote. John King has Michael Frias, the CEO of Catalyst, booked. They analyze all the early voting data for us here at CNN. Really interesting trends on the huge jump among the younger vote across all demographics, Black, Latino, and white. And that pairs well with Dana Bash's Youth Vote piece, which is going to get a couple of airings today. We'll also get to Kate Bennett later on today with Melania Trump making a very, very rare appearance on the campaign trail. On coronavirus, we're going to spotlight all these hot spots, Ed Lavendera in El Paso, Adrian Broadus in Chicago. We have a number of bookings in these key states. Just had the Illinois Public Health Director on with Jim and Poppy, the one who broke down over the weekend. We're also going to get the Judge Ricardo Samaniego of El Paso County on the surge there. And Brianna has both the Director of Montana Public Health and a doctor on the front lines in Utah, 2 states that are facing some really serious issues right now. Sanjay Gupta and Elizabeth Cohen with Gottlieb on the exponential spread, and that British study with the findings on waning immunity, a lot to discuss there. Dr. Seema Yasmin, Dr. Jay Varkey, and Leona Wen add to that conversation, as well as talking about the Burke's comments about the least use of masks she's seen when she rolled through North Dakota. All shows are going to be on the Philadelphia police shooting, ceremony up around that right now. Brendan Grass will be on the scene later on this morning. And then finally, we're about to get on the record with the Carroll case and the federal judge ruling against the DOJ. Shimon will handle that for us.
Okay, thank you. Washington?
Morning. On the lead, Caitlin, of course, on all things Trump and White House, and Jessica Dean with Biden in Georgia. Pamela Brown has our voting wrap piece, and we'll get to into the Wisconsin decision as well, of course. Senator Tim Kaine among our guests. The dire COVID numbers, we've got Dr. Rochelle Walensky, and we will continue to look at our policy differences between the candidates, today focusing on foreign policy with an Alex Marquardt donut. Mary Trump also joins in the fore for her argument that the Goldwater rule is too restrictive and psychology professionals should be more outspoken about her uncle. Nick Watt has our COVID rap piece in the fore. We've got Sanjay, of course. We're also going to speak to a frontline infectious disease physician in Salt Lake City on Utah rationing care and the desperate situation with hospitals there. Sarah Murray in Harrisburg, and the Pennsylvania Secretary of State joins us. And, of course, we will report on the latest on the Philly unrest following the police shooting there.
And in the Situation Room, we'll be connecting all of the dots 1 week from Election Day. The path to 270, putting the puzzle together, and the battle for Congress. Trump in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nebraska, and why he's there. Biden in Georgia, and why he's there. All of this with record more than 65 million votes already cast. We'll get into the Wisconsin SCOTUS ruling, and we'll try to do a whip of reporters in some of these key battleground states. All of this as the virus is raging, almost every state in the red. Trump continuing to say we're rounding the turn and we're at 99.9%. We're also going to do a deeper dive on voter suppression tactics and what civil rights leaders are doing in the trenches. That was a suggestion from Janita. So we'll do that with Derek Johnson of the NAACP and Ben Ginsberg. And then we'll get to the Philadelphia police shooting as well. That's where we're starting.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anybody else have anything they want to bring up?
I sent this around to a few people, but I really think we should cover somehow Peggy Noonan's controversial remarks about Kamala Harris. She said that, you know, when she's laughing and dancing on the campaign trail, she's coming across as insubstantial, frivolous, and embarrassing. And, you know, it's not that she can never be criticized. It's just that sometimes there's a sense of double standards and stereotypes. And I think that Sophia Nelson, as a Black conservative voice, would be perfect to have on air, because she wrote this: Peggy Noonan is my friend. Here's why her Kamala Harris comments were wrong. And basically that sometimes Black women feel we can never win, right? We're either angry, mean, ambitious, independent, or we're like, you know, we're not serious enough. And I think that the point is, it's not to just castigate, you know, Noonan. It's just to have that conversation that, you know, as Sophia Nelson says, a teachable moment. But, you know, we need to just sort of, you know, understand why these kinds of comments are so damaging.
Yeah, I agree that that's an interesting story. Anyone else?
Yeah, Jeff, in terms of, you know, Emily was just talking about voter suppression, and earlier you asked about the tweet by the president that Twitter flagged. So it was at 7:43 last night. Trump tweets, big problems and discrepancies with mail-in ballots all over the USA. Of course, must have final vote on November 3rd. That's the one. And Twitter says some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed and might be misleading about how to participate in an election or another civic process. Learn more. Their stamp is there first before you even get to Trump's misleading statement. So it's, you know, I don't know what we do with it, but you had asked about it, and that's where it was. And he continues to talk about the problems and discrepancies with mail-in ballots. He doesn't use fraud right there, but he said must have final total on November 3rd, which of course is ridiculous.
Right. So now Richard Davis and Rick Davis have both pointed this out, and I will agree that I think we should be highlighting it, because I think it is part of the whole story with early voting, the when we will know the results, Trump's pressure to know by November 3rd, Kavanaugh's decision in his footnote last night that he agrees with the Trumpian point of view, what that portends for next week. So I think it's actually quite important. Anyone else?
Hey, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, it's Ramon. This is an interesting little story that we've never seen something like this from the Colombian government. So it was reported yesterday that the U.S. Embassy in Bogota sent a warning to Colombian politicians to stay out of the U.S. election. CNN did an op-ed on this with two U.S. congressmen, Gregory Meeks and another U.S. congressman, I think Callejo, writing that the Colombians need to stay out of the U.S. election. And so what's happened is two Colombian senators and one Colombian congressman who lives in Miami but commutes to Bogota to his congressional sessions. He's a dual citizen. They have been campaigning for Trump and inundating social media in Florida to Colombian Americans and Venezuelans who can vote, claiming that Biden is a communist, he will not be a friend of Venezuela, to helping Venezuela all of those things. It's been quite aggressive, but we've never seen an embassy like this do this, especially to an ally like Colombia. And it actually, the U.S. embassy actually sent a warning and said, you need to stop meddling in the U.S. election. So it's sort of an unusual thing that they've done. And it just underscores the battle in Florida, that this sort of disinformation campaign continues in Spanish across social media. It's an interesting little wrinkle.
So the U.S. government's willing to do that in Colombia, but not say that to Russia.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Any other thoughts? I have a couple questions for Washington, or that I think we should look at. Where was Mike Pence at last night's Amy Coney Barrett event? Don't forget, remember, he was originally going to go to the Senate vote. He didn't even show up at the event at the White House. And I do think there is a story to be done on Mark Meadows' role in all of this, given what he said to Jake this week, given that he's out there denying that there's efficiency of masks, that he agrees that we're rounding the corner. The campaign is upset with him. I think there's a Mark Meadows story to be done. I just want to close by saying let's make sure that we are being in the moment, urgent, newsy, not covering yesterday's news, but being where the story is today. Let's not focus on let's make sure we're focused on what's happening today and looking ahead, looking forward, and looking ahead to next Tuesday. The path to 270, all the ways the puzzle comes together. Where is everybody on this campaign today? Where are they going? Where do things stand now? Looking ahead, when do people count votes, et cetera, et cetera. The election, COVID, politics of COVID, and everything associated with all those things. I do think Philadelphia deserves some attention. Have a good day, everybody. Thanks. Bye-bye.